Hi everyone, Paul Akers, host of the American Innovator. You know, the innovative spirit is alive and well, and everywhere I travel around the world, I bring back ideas and creativity to share with my audience to continuously improve and change the way we live. Welcome to the American Innovator. Well, hello everyone. This week we're going back to London, or actually just outside of London, about 1 hour, to a place called Bletchley Park. Now, Bletchley Park is one of the most fascinating places I've ever been. It's where the British cracked the German Enigma machine. And of course, we had Katie and William along, and Ashley and Sarah and my wife Leanne, and we just had a fascinating time learning how the British industrialized cracking the German codes, which was a very important part of why the war was won. Now, this is the actual Enigma machine that the Germans used. It was developed by the Dutch in about 1922, and the Germans perfected it, or thought they perfected it, so that it couldn't be broke. But the British, under the brilliant leadership of Alan Turing, a mathematician from Oxford, figured it out by developing machinery and equipment, basically early generations of computers, to go through and decipher all the code. Of course, having William and Katie along were fantastic, and we had the treat of all treats when we started off our tour. A woman who actually operated one of the bomb machines to decipher was in the audience, and she got up and spoke.
Which you will be told about, and you'll see later on.
There you are. Now, come on, how lucky could you be to have somebody who actually was there when it was all happening, part of our tour group?
When this place started, we had about 200 people associated with Bletchley Park at the outbreak of war. This estate, there was an old red brick farmhouse here in the 1870s, and by the 1880s, this land was owned by the Leanne family. Sir Herbert Leanne was a stockbroker in London, so a very wealthy family, and they had about 583 acres of land here at the time. What we're standing on today is much less than that. It's about 50 acres of land.
At one point, William got a little restless, and the lady who actually worked at Bletchley Park, could you imagine, took his hand and showed him some of the interesting artifacts inside the museum. It was unbelievable to have this happen. What a reflection for William's going to have to look back to know this woman led him personally through Bletchley Park. Commander Denston actually operated the entire facility, and this is his office right here inside the mansion, the Leanne mansion. And this is where the code breaking first started. This is one of the libraries where they had a lot of code machines and clerical work was being done. So you could just kind of visualize what this would have been like. And remember, it started with 200 people and went all the way up to 10,000. They had a lecture going on by another mathematician from one of the local universities. And it was just fascinating to see the intense work that was done by the British. And they did a fantastic job. Now, this is one of the bomb machines. I don't know why they call it the bomb machines. I forgot to ask that. But this is a machine that actually broke the daily code. So every day, the Germans had a different code to set the Enigma machine to every 30 days. And they first had to break the code every day and then break thousands of messages that were being intercepted by the British through telegram, because the Germans didn't think that the British would ever be able to actually break the code. But under the leadership of Alan Turing and a lot of other great scientists and mathematicians, they figured out how to actually crack the daily code first that each Enigma machine was being set to throughout the war front. And then take all the messages that were being intercepted by the British through telegram, put those into the machine, and get the results they needed to know what the Germans were going to do. They credit Turing with actually saving millions of lives and shortening the war by a couple years because of the information they were able to derive at Bletchley Park.
And the top drone round constantly. The clicking noise you can hear is what we call the carry bar just below that, taking the next drum down round a letter at a time. And hey presto, it's just stopped at the time. Okay, I can hear myself think now. Cast your mind back to wartime. Over 200 of these were made, and they were actually working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 366 days a year, because there was that much pressure. They were all developed from the sort of concept that the British were given by Polish mathematicians who were breaking Enigma pre-war. That was built on by people like Alan Turing and Gordon Welchman, and all these concepts, lots and lots of sketch diagrams, and so on, given to a design engineer at the British Tabulating Machine Company in Letchworth in Hertfordshire, and that was Harold King. And he was the person who put all these ideas together into a beautiful machine like this. Okay, so all 200 plus were working during wartime. We only had about 6 at Bletchley Park. The rest of them were in various outstations. Logical reasons, if any area got a direct hit, we'd still have machines working. So at the end of World War II, we assumed, with the rest of Churchill's guidance, orders, these were actually broken up, taken apart, and bits sold off as war surplus. In fact, one of our veterans said the day after VE Day, she was given tools, access to big bins, and told to do just that. Quite sad, really. She'd been working like 3 years. We thought that was the fate of all 200 plus, but fairly recently we found out that some were kept. About 15 or so, slightly different designs, and they were moved into our biggest outstation, Eastcote, just north of London. And they continued working post-war. Well, the ideas behind that, it's actually just our ideas, to be honest. Remember that the Russians had been sweeping across Eastern Europe at the end of World War II, capturing everything in their path. Well, if that included Enigma machines, remember, we're going virtually straight on into the Cold War, they were going to use them. So some of these were still working until early to mid-1960s, when, because Enigma was superseded, we assumed these remaining machines were taken apart. So in 1996, a group of engineers got together at this very new museum devoted to World War II codebreaking, decided it'd be great to have a working bomb machine. So they applied to GCHQ to see if there were any blueprints. A box of about 4,000 documents arrived at Bletchley Park one day. Faded, dog-eared, the rest of it you can imagine. And pertaining to slightly different bomb designs. When they sifted through and had a look for the design they wanted to build, no assembly diagrams. Oops, look at it. No assembly diagrams, oops. And not an awful lot in the way of wiring diagrams. There's about 12 miles of wire in this. So the first 2 years of this rebuild actually had them designing what they needed on computer, building a prototype, and then 10 years building this. 10 years, well, there's a reason behind that. Most of these parts were readily available in various sort of light and heavy engineering during wartime, and very quick to put together. For example, the horizontal bars were actually vertical in telephone exchanges, with those worm wheels having bits clicking round, getting your long distance telephone sorted. Okay, this far after the war, everything's computerized. So they actually had to build the jigs, to build the tools, to build the parts. That's why it took 10 years.
You know, you can't help but notice what she just said. It took current day scientists and engineers over 10 years to recreate the model that they made back with very primitive tools and materials in just a few short months. It's really staggering how much the British accomplished because there was urgency, because their life depended on it. They had to figure out how to make these machines, and they didn't have a long time to do them. Pressure is your friend is all I can say. That is one of the main takeaways I got from this. The other thing is, look at how many people came together to create this fantastic machine. It really wasn't just Alan Turing. Well, he was brilliant, and he was definitely the lead guy. Everybody had to come together, including design engineers and clerical people and people to run the machines, like this elderly lady that we met. She was just 17 years old when she went to work here and operated these machines non-stop without a break. She was always involved, and it was all secretive. Her family didn't know what she was doing. Nobody knew what she was doing. And what they did is they kept all the information very isolated. So you really didn't know what the next person was doing. So nobody could put the entire puzzle together because they were so concerned about a leak getting out. And if a leak got out, then their entire operation would be jeopardized. Now the German would not transmit the messages through the telegraph, but they would find some other means, and then we wouldn't know what they were doing. So really the British put together a fabulous infrastructure of industrializing code breaking.
Coming in who hasn't passed the health and safety talk that we all have to have. But you don't say that to a very, very important person. You allow them to just switch the switch on the front to set the machine going. But that person was very nosy that day, came buzzing around the back, went to touch one of the sense relays saying, what does this do? Fortunately, never got that far. We do have a Shakespearean quote up here. Was it for me to kill the heir apparent? Just to subtly tell you, it was indeed Prince Charles. It would have been a very embarrassing letter to have to write to the palace, saying he's not coming home for dinner tonight, he's already fried. Okay, that's an awful lot of information to take in. Any questions? Ooh, stunned silence. We're used to that. If you do think of anything, do come back and ask the team who actually are, it's their day today. But there is also a visitor's book, which you're very welcome to sign as well. Thanks very much.
One person operated it?
Two.
Two people.
Always two. Thank you.
And why two?
Health and safety, even in those days. But actually, two wrens could do it quicker.
Okay.
It took you about half an hour to actually plug up on the back and to put these drums on the front and get the right setting. They swapped over and checked each other's work, and then one would be operating the machine, the other would be sitting at a checking machine. The one operating the machine called out the stops, the one at the checking machine would actually work around the menu to check whether that stop was the correct one.
And the information in these was based on the daily code from the Germans. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
And then they took the
But
information that was
actually,
delivered every
we
day.
didn't have those daily codes.
So you had to figure out, you had to
We figure
extrapolate.
out the settings of the day every single day.
So you had to figure out the settings of the day and decrypt the code of the information that was brought to you.
Absolutely.
Both two things.
That's every single day. That's why the crib, the cribsters here were so important. They had a very, very good idea because of where those
So
messages
what was
come
more
from.
difficult, figuring out what the daily code was or decrypting the code? Or decrypting the message?
Once you got the settings of the day, no problem.
It was easy. It was
Yeah.
the settings of the day that was the big mystery or the most important information.
This,
Look at the setting of armies of people using those machines. that
yeah, absolutely,
people could do it.
absolutely, yeah. But to be honest, if you look at the average three rotor Enigma, it's 158 million to one
Right.
crack. This shortens that to about 1 million,
Right.
which then the human brain can cope with.
Oh,
Isn't this
wow.
great?
William, you're running the bomb machine.
What a great thing for children to learn about. And this is actually the place where they received the messages, or they listened for the message that the Germans were bringing, and then they handed those messages, they were encrypted obviously, to a motorcycle rider who then delivered them to Bletchley Park to have them deciphered. And this is a sculpture of
Slate
Alan
replica.
Turing made out of slate from the roof of the building. It is absolutely fantastic.
On the shelf under here.
Exactly.
Can you see it? It's in there. It's
Oh,
very dark. You can just see the handle of it.
Yeah.
And that was one.
So he was a germaphobe, kind of?
Well, I don't know what
Yeah.
they called him, but no, he was very paranoid about people using this.
It is, yeah.
It's a lovely likeness.
Beautiful.
It's detail and the shoelaces and everything. It's fantastic.
Fantastic, it
It took the artist 18 months to build this.
It's in 4 sections.
It's all bolted together. Yeah.
And made from the roofing slate.
Well, some of it,
Apart
yes.
from the big lumps here, the big lump here he brought from the Welsh slate mines, but most of the small pieces come from the mansion, all glued together.
And to be honest, it's so lifelike that if we come down here early in the morning, I'll actually say good morning to them. No, actually, I'll call it Mr. Turing.
Oh yes, it's
Although
definitely
actually they were informal. That's something I asked one of our veterans. They did call each other Christian names.
We're often here quite late at night doing filming out of hours, and we only have the lights around the bomb. This is all in darkness,
quite
and it's
scary.
quite scary because he's so lifelike and life-size that you expect him to get up and start walking about.
You did say that a lot of people that worked here were eccentric.
Oh yes. Yes.
There was, well, two
You led yourself into that one.
He suffered
He
from
did,
hay
didn't he?
fever,
Really?
and he was billeted several villages away, and he cycled to work. But in the summer, in order to cope with his hay fever, he put his gas mask on. Imagine he's riding through these villages, these poor villages, and what does he know that we don't know? And they all start putting the gas mask on. And the other thing was his bike. It was a very old bike, and the chain kept coming off. And being a mathematician, and not an engineer. He didn't fix the chain. He just worked out how many times he could pedal before he had to back pedal and then try again. And he did that all the way here. That's eccentricity for him. But he did. We know now he suffered from Asperger's, as many of them did. There was one of the classicists who used to wander around the lake thinking of what he was doing, and he'd have a cup of tea in his hand, and he was wandering around thinking of what his code breaking, and all of a sudden he'd go to drink his tea and it had all gone, and he just, what do I do with it now? And he just threw it in the lake. And we've actually found cups and saucers galore in the bottom of the lake over the years. Those some strange people, really. Anyway.
So, Katie, where are we going?
The National Museum of Computing.
All right, let's go inside.
And last but not least, we got to go see the Colossus machine, the original first computer that they built, yes, in 4 months. This museum was fantastic because it had all the history of computers right on through to the present age. But the most important thing is that the British needed to find some way to compute and decipher all these codes. And so they invented the Colossus machine, and they had computer scientists there explaining the process from the very beginning all the way through to the present. We saw some of the big old IBM machines, and look at that hard disk over there. That's a hard disk, and that hard disk, that big one right there, could basically store the one picture. Think about where we've come. We have an iPhone that has thousands of pictures. And Katie and William got to see how the original computer worked with a small little ticker tape that punched little holes in there, and they actually punched their name out. Boy, have we come a long ways. What a great experience for kids. And now this is called the Witch Machine. This is a later generation after the Colossus, and these are some old IBM computers they had on display. And then now this scientist is explaining, this tour leader is explaining the original Colossus machine.
He operated a switch on that machine and set it back to exactly the same setting he'd used the first time. Shouldn't have done it, but that's what he did. And then he started sending the message. If he'd sent exactly the same message, of course all we would have got would have been a duplicate, not a great deal of help. But the second time he thought, I'll see if I can abbreviate now and again, because that'll save me a bit of work. So he started to abbreviate. I mean, obviously the first time you send somewhere in the heading of the message, you send message number, and he sent Spruck Nummer. But the second time, he thought I can abbreviate that, and he sent Spruck NR. NR being the German equivalent of our NO or NOS. So he started to abbreviate, and the second time the message was several hundred characters shorter than the first time. But the point was it had been set to exactly the same setting. That was realised as something unique and unusual, and it was hoofed straight up to Bletchley Park. It was given to Captain John Tiltman, probably the most brilliant cryptographer of that century. Tiltman took those two messages, and as I explained just now, when you add those two tapes together, the cipher stream will drop out because it's the same setting. And he was left with that amalgam. But this time, of course, he knew it was the full message, and it was the abbreviated form, so you sort of knew what was supposed to be coming next. And he was able to tease those two apart. And then
So what this scientist is explaining is basically the Germans made a mistake. They didn't follow the process, and the result is the British were able to intercept that message and determine what was going on, and the net result is they cracked the code.
This time, it's the message that's exactly the same.
Cautionary tale on not following the process. The entire war hang in the balance. So this was just the most fascinating trip. I'd go back again and again to Bletchley Park. I highly recommend it. One of the greatest places I've visited in the UK, and I've been to some pretty special places. And this is the original Colossus machine that was developed in 4 months. Staggering. It took them 13 years to recreate it in the present time.
Remember, life's an adventure. Be a part of the solution. Go out, learn, improve, change, think outside the box. We can change the way the world thinks. Be an innovator. I really got to stop getting myself in these situations. That's a leopard, and that's an elephant. Yes, and this is a cheetah.
Like, oh, I saw
Here,
that.
kitty, 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 kitty.
Cute. He wants to play.
Uh-oh. Got it.